Tip number 1, I want to show you how you can record and use macros like a pro. What are macros? Will they help you automate repetitive tasks? Here, for instance, I want to add some additional countries to my sheet, and those additional countries will sell all these same types of brands. I could type in the country name, and then I could go in, I could copy all the brand names, I could paste it, and then I could copy down the name, but this takes a lot of manual steps. I want to use macros to help me with this. Instead, let me type in another country name, Italy, and this time we're going to record a macro. To record a macro, let's click on View on the top toolbar, and all the way over on the right-hand side, let's select Macros. Within the menu, let's click on Record Macro, and we also want to make sure we check the box that says Use Relative Reference. With a relative reference, the macro will run from whatever cell you happen to be in. Let's click on Record Macro. We can now give the macro a title. I'm going to call this Create New Country. Once I finish entering the name, you can also assign a shortcut key to the macro. You could also define where you're going to store the macro. I'm going to leave it in this workbook. Let's click on OK. Now the macro is recording, so let's fill out our steps. First, I'm going to copy the country name, and I'm going to go in and paste it 6 times. Next, I want to copy all of the brand names from above, and I'm going to paste it down here. I'm now done running my macro, so let's go up to the top and let's click on Stop Recording. Basically, this is Excel remembering all the steps that you run through. Now that I've recorded all the steps, I want to add an additional country, and instead of going through and manually copying and pasting the country name and then all the brand's name, I'm going to run my macro. Once again, let's go up to Macros, click on View Macros, and I can now run my macro. Check that out. It has now automated all of those manual steps that I took. This is just a simple example of how you can use macros. You can also use it for far more complex examples. Tip number 2, you can use ideas in Microsoft Excel to get interesting insights on your data. Here, I have a whole bunch of data. I could analyze it on my own, or I could simply rely on Microsoft Excel. I'll click here within the data, and then on the Home tab on the Home ribbon, let's go over to the far right-hand side and click on Analyze Data. This opens up a pane on the right-hand side, and you can see that Microsoft Excel has analyzed the data and it's created all these interesting views that look at the data. Up above, what's interesting as well is I can ask a question about my data. Here I can see some example questions. I'll go ahead and type in a question. I typed in, which brand has the lowest profit? When you type in your query, you just have to make sure that the words that you refer to match the different column headers. Here, for instance, I have a column header called Brand Name, and I have another column called Profit. If I click on Enter, this will now show me the results of my question. How cool is that? Here I could see that Tata has the lowest sum of profit. Tip number 3, I want to run through some of my favorite functions in Microsoft Excel, and the first one is XLOOKUP. If you've ever used VLOOKUP before or HLOOKUP before, XLOOKUP replaces both of those. What does XLOOKUP do? Just like the name implies, you can look up data. Here I have a table with a bunch of data related to different countries and different brands' sales. I want to list out the store manager based on the country. I have another table down below that has the country and the manager. I want to pull the manager from here and insert it up here, and XLOOKUP will help with this. To use XLOOKUP, let's type in equals, and first off, type in XLOOKUP and then open parentheses. First, I need to define what value I want to look up. I want to look up the country, so let's click on Country. Next, let's enter a comma, and now I need to specify what my lookup array is. This is basically where I'm doing my lookup, and I want to look over in this table down below. Here, I'm going to make it an absolute reference by clicking here and pressing F4 key. Next, I need to define the return array. Basically what happens is if it finds the United States down here in this selection, what is it going to send back? I want to select this column right here with the manager names. Here, I'm going to make it an absolute reference. The reason I'm making it an absolute reference is as I paste this formula down, I want it to continue looking just at this table right here. I've now specified my return array. Next, I can say what happens if nothing is found. I'm going to insert quotes, and I'll simply type in not found. Next, I'll enter another comma, and I could define the match mode. I want it to be an exact match, so I'll enter a 0. Basically, if it doesn't find an exact match for the country, I don't want it to return anything. Now that I'm all done, I'll hit enter. And here you see that it pulls in Oreo space because he's the store manager for the United States. If I copy this down now, you see that for China, it correctly pulls in Health Chips as the manager. You can use XLOOKUP for all sorts of neat scenarios. This is just a quick example of how you can use it. Tip number 4, as you can see over here in the table, we have all of this data down below, which when you start to scroll down, you can actually no longer see the header. So we're not really quite sure what this is referring to. And same thing with all of these other ones. And so what we can do here instead is actually just do a shortcut, which is going to freeze that top row. Now to do this, you're going to press Alt-WFR. And now when we start to scroll down, you'll notice that that top line is frozen, which makes things a lot easier for us. If you ever want to remove that, you can always go over here under Freeze Panes in the View option. Just click on it, and from here, just hit Unfreeze Panes. And that's going to remove that for us. Tip number 5, another one of my favorite functions is the sum function. You can enter equals and then type in sum, and you could very easily sum up all the values right here, and that'll tell you the total of the column. There is an easier way, and I love this shortcut key. Instead, you can press the Alt key together with the equals key, and that'll automatically pull in the sum function and sum up all the values above. You can then press Enter. As an alternative to sum values, you can simply highlight all the values, and down in the status bar down below, you'll also see the sum. One additional way that you can sum values, click on Insert on the top ribbon and then insert a table and then click on OK. This inserts a table, and under Table Design, I can add a total row. Now when I click down below here too from a drop-down list, I can select from a number of different functions. I'm going to select Sum, and there too, I also have my sum. Tip number 6. You can see that we've got discontinued here. And let's say we want to continue this on. Now to do so, you can just press Ctrl-R. That's basically going to copy what you had towards the left. And similarly, you can go to Ctrl-D. That's going to drag everything that you had above down 1. Going back down towards the bottom. Now let's suppose over here that we want to add some new rows. And so instead of actually going ahead and typing everything in again, what you can do is hit the Alt-down arrow. And so it's somewhat faster for you to just paste all of the things that you already had above in there. Tip number 7. Now I want to show you how you can connect or concatenate different values. Here I have cells A and B, Tech AI, Ladybug, Excel tips and tricks, and I'd like to bring them together in one cell. I'm going to show 2 different ways you can do this. You can use the concatenate function to pull these together. You simply type in concat, and here select concat, and then you could type the first value. I'm going to insert a comma because I want a space between them, so I'll insert a quote, space quote, another comma, and now I'll select the value in B1 and close my parentheses. This now concatenates those values, but there is an even easier way in Microsoft Excel. Instead, I'm going to type in Tech AI, because this is what I want it to look like in cell C1. Now, instead of entering a formula, I simply drag this down. Now, currently, it says Tech AI. If I click on this little icon, I can apply a flash fill. And here, what Excel does is it detects how I merged these 2 values, and it does the same thing as I flash filled down, so I don't even need to use a formula anymore to connect cells. Tip number 8. I want to show you how you can use SUMIF to only sum values if they meet a certain criteria. Here I have profit data by country, so I see all my profit for the United States, and I see all of my profit for China. What if I just want to know the profit for the United States? We could use SUMIF to do this. Down in this cell, I'm going to enter my formula, and we're going to type in SUMIF. Next, I want to open my parentheses, and I want to look in column A to see if it matches United States. Next, I need to type in my criteria, and I'm going to type in United States in quotes. Next, I'm going to insert a column, and now if it finds a match over here, I need to indicate what I want it to sum, and I want it to sum the profit, so for the sum range, I'm going to highlight this column. Next, I'll close my parentheses and hit Enter. Here now, I see the profit for the United States. Tip number 9. What if we want to move a specific row up a bit? Now, to do so, we'll go to Shift Space. And instead of having to add new rows, etc., we can just press the Shift key. And when you hover over the area, you'll see that the cursor changes to these arrows. And from there, you just want to click and drag it. Let's say we drag it up over here, and you can see how that's moved it all up. Similarly, we can take it back down. To undo that, we're just going to press Ctrl-Z and Ctrl-Z again. Tip number 10. This is similar to SUMIF, but this time we're going to count if it meets a certain criteria. Here, I want to know how many countries sell Oppo brand. Here, I see all my countries, and I see the brands that the company sells in those different markets. So here, let's insert a formula. I'm going to type in COUNTIF. Once we enter COUNTIF, let's open the parentheses, and here I need to define the range. So I want to look across all the different brands that we sell in each of these countries. Next, I need to define the criteria, and I want to look for Oppo. I'm going to insert quotes, type in Oppo, and close my parentheses. Next, let's click on Enter. Here now I see that we sell Oppo brand in 2 different countries. Here I see in the United States, and here I see in China, and there's no Oppo brand in Germany. And there you have it, powerful Excel tips and tricks to boost your productivity. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more Excel tips and tutorials. Hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content. Thanks for watching, and happy excelling!